Hello. So we have Aiyshwarya with us. Aiyshwarya is a media panelist for Indian National Congress. She's a national media panelist. Uh, she's a daughter of an ex-MLA from Nagar, which is in Mysuru district, Karnataka, and she's a new age politician. So welcome a lot, Aiyshwarya. Thanks a lot for taking the time out. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for having me, Abhimanyu. It's an honor to be here.
Great. So, just starting the conversation, Ashira, I would like to know something about your family background, your initial years, where you born, where you brought up, schoolings, education, where did all it happen?
So basically, much like a lot of politicians that get the flag for this, is I am from a political family. I'm a fourth generation politician. My great-grandfather was an MLA in a constituency called Piriyapatna, which is the neighboring constituency of where my father was. My grandfather was in the services, retired as the DC of Mandya district, which is next to where we are. My father had aspirations of going into the services, but didn't happen. So he's a lawyer by degree and profession, and entered politics in the neighboring constituency. And for me, I have grown up in both Bangalore and rural Mysore. I grew up in to be very honest, a hyper political environment, as I can say. I think for me, I was probably I think a year or something old when my grandfather contested, around 5 years when my father first contested. And my entire life has been in a very, very active political family, but also a family that is involved in social work. Like my mother, my grandmother, the women of the family inherently do have a large section of work that they do with society, especially where we come from. I was schooled in Bangalore, spent almost all my free time here in rural Mysore. I finished my schooling from Bishop Cotton's in Bangalore. Then I decided, even though I did get into, I did the CLAT and got into one of the national law schools, my father said, if you want to be in politics, then you might as well be in Bangalore to help and work. So I did my law degree here from Christ. And when I was in my first year, the reason I did law was also because I wanted to be in politics, to be honest. I think it's like how a lot of doctors' children either tend to run far away from it or tend to gravitate towards it. I think this was one of those situations for me. But when I was in my first year of law school, my father at the age of 48 passed away due to a heart attack very suddenly. So a lot changed, but once I was 18, 19 at that point. But once I was 25, finished my law degree, I think it was where I wanted to be. So I entered formal politics, not politics per se, but I entered with starting work in the memory of my father by way of a charitable trust. And slowly the party also gave me opportunities to work. So that's my background, to be honest.
Got it. So you were from a political family. I mean, you said that you are a fourth generation politician. But when, I mean, the first interest in politics strike you, because what generally happens if in politics all around, you probably got, I mean, what you just mentioned, that you run away from it as well. So when was it that you start liking it, or you wanted, I mean, to do something in the socio-political domain?
So, the one thing I think with a lot of children that I grew up with from political families, again, I will repeat that some of us are drawn towards it. Some of us have the biggest aversion. Like I have friends that would never want to be in politics because they've never seen their parents. Like my father was pretty much quite absentee, in a lot of my formative years. And a lot of my friends that I know in the same setup have either gravitated towards or against. For me, why politics? As I said, like, I think I probably saw my first election in 99 when I was around 5 years old. I had no I had no idea what it was. I just knew I was going door to door in Canada saying that, like basically what you would say is like, aapki vote, just give your vote to this person, that person. I was just repeating that without understanding the consequence of it. In 2004, I was much older, a little more awareness of politics. I knew my father had lost in 99. So I saw the way that we had worked as a family. And more than that, I think where I wanted to be in politics, though I will be honest, after my father's passing, I did not want to be in politics because it is very hard. I honestly have the deepest admiration for people that are first generation, because they come out, they have to struggle. And not to say that we don't, but they don't have that introduction, that foot in the door per se. For me, I was a little reluctant, but the reason I think politics is something I decided I want to be part of is it is the most direct manner of affecting change, especially in rural India. For example, to me, taking somebody to a tahsildar to get one piece of documentation is nothing. But to that farmer who has come from his village, saved up money to take that bus to come, and one day's work is ruined to get that one piece of paperwork. And if somebody helps him do it, to him, that is probably manifold, because I have saved him so much trouble. I've saved him so much of the bureaucracy. And the other thing is, political will and politics as a whole is the strongest form of bringing change. And I'm not talking infrastructure, I'm not talking tarring or big roads or whatever. I am talking about institutionalized social change. For example, the quality of meals for my midday meals in my schools for rural children is directly proportionate to the amount of care I take to ensure the quality of food that goes to them. It is about the sort of books or the quality of uniforms, those small things, that is something that improves social capital. For me, I realized it is the most, call it perverse in a way, but for me, I felt the most satisfied, the most like I was giving back when I was able to help these people. And during COVID, for me, honestly, I think the most serious I've ever been about politics, because I've been a national spokesperson, like, media panelist for a longer time. But my connection to the ground probably grew so much more when I realized if I was able to spare one mask for one ASHA worker who has to go survey 1,500 houses, or one mask for or in PHCs, or one mask for frontline workers who didn't have supplies at that point, I realized how much change I can bring. And it's not just politics. It is just, if you have enough agency, a little bit of capital to help and spend on helping. So I realized then that this is the path for me, because I honestly feel the most at home in my constituency. I feel the most that people need me, whether it's small or big. And there is a satisfaction that I can know at the end of the day that I may have affected change directly in somebody's life. So that is where, for me, politics has been over the years, a transitionary.
And
So
when did you decided to do this? I mean, when was the time that you decided to pursue politics as
to
your...
be honest, I think I wanted to be in politics from the age of probably 10.
Okay.
And, it's very weird because there are certain political households where politics is kept outdoors, kept outside the house, doesn't come in. But I come from a household where it's generations of my family, from whether it is talking about Devrajars, who was one of our most prolific chief ministers, who comes again from my great grandfather's constituency, neighboring, who we knew, or talking about the policies, or whether it's land reforms. And my family are all big, voracious readers. So it was literally like something that I grew up in. It was not something that I knew something else that could be done. Law was something that I was interested in. But I think because I've lived such a public life from such a small age, because we've lived a life of service, I don't know how else to explain it. My mother, my father, and I have pretty much lived a life that is very public, where a lot of our lives is in terms of serving. That I think for me, from the time I could consciously know, when my father became an MLA, especially because of the amount of change he could bring, and though he has passed, every day that I'm in the taluk and I'm visiting people, I'm learning more about his life and his contributions. So I think from 10 onwards, it has been like a journey that has fructified, solidified into where I am today.
I mean, when you were doing law, you said from Christ College, you were clear that you are going to be in politics post this law, or you had some other plan as well in some time.
So,
Some time.
I think for me, I joined law with the intention that I wanted to be in politics.
Okay.
But since my father passed away in the first year, I think my mother and I went through a phase where I think after living such hyper public lives, we wanted some time for ourselves. So at which point, while going through law school, and I did reasonably well, I was very interested in international relations. I was very, very interested in humanitarian law. I actually wanted to go abroad and do a master's. But what ended up happening is that though my father wasn't there, and unfortunately, my grandfather, who was also political, passed away within a year of my father, right after, a lot of people whose livelihoods and who were part of our ecosystem, for whom we were the nucleus of activity for social work, for political work, for empowerment, a lot of them felt very lost. So while they came to my mother, they also approached me. So, over time, I don't know how else to say it. I wouldn't say it's a calling, but it was that sense of responsibility to be there to look out for our people. See, I don't say this from a sense of I am some supreme being. I say this from the sense of these are people that worked in our immediate ecosystem, worked in the social work we did, and for us to suddenly withdraw was a little hard. So slowly I started going back. I think I graduated law school in 2016. My mother's always been very in ground in the constituency. I took some time off to work for Professor Rajiv Gowda in the AICC research department. He was a member of parliament at that point to grasp some of the basics. But then in 2017, I came back and decided that, okay, this is it's in Canada, like this is my dharma bhumi, as to say that this is where I want to be, this is where I want to serve. And every day that is just strengthened. Some days I wish, especially looking at things in the country, sometimes you feel like maybe I would have been better off doing like international law. Well, honestly, I have friends at The Hague and working in the ICC, and I feel like a little twinge of what if, but I wouldn't trade what I have for any of it, to be honest.
One thing, you had an opportunity to work or to see the work of your father, to see the work of your grandfather. One thing that you think that they taught you or you learned from them, and that's life changing, or that's the most important thing in terms of political field. What's the thing that one thing you might have learned a lot of things, obviously, but one thing that you think stands out, or that's the most important thing you think that you learned from your.
I think the one thing, actually, rather a little addition, is that both my grandfather and my father believed in a very strong sense of duty. They believed in a very strong sense of dharma. And I do not mean this from a religious connotation, but rather that they had their own duty that was bestowed upon them to do. And my father told me this, he had lost in 99, and I thought, okay, fine, I'll get my father back at this point. He's lost. He'll not go back to politics. And I think he stayed with us at home for a week, if I'm not wrong. And he disappeared again to the village. And I said, you lost. They defeated you by thousands and thousands of votes. Why are you going back to work for them? And he said, it doesn't matter. Even if I got one vote, the fact that I got one vote is important enough to tell me there is one man that believes in me, and that one man I will do right by. So, for me, everybody glamorizes politics to the extent of saying it is about power. It is about, everybody loves Anil Kapoor's Nayak for that, thinking change is going to happen overnight at that level and whatnot. But I think politics is a responsibility. It is a sacred duty. It is not about getting a return. It is about irrespective of whether that person votes for you later or not. Because it's sacrosanct when somebody believes in you. There is no other profession except maybe trust when it comes to the corporate world where they'll invest in you. But that again is a reciprocal relationship. Here, somebody who has nothing except faith has decided to put their faith in you, and that duty to that person. And for me, every day, I have never contested an election, but if there are people who come and say, we knew your father, we voted for your father, we worked for him, or if they need something, I think because I'm here, it is my duty to go above and beyond to help them. and without expecting anything in return. I think there's also a verse in the Gita on the same lines, about, it is, do your duty without looking for the fruits of it. But I think in a roundabout way, my family has just taught me that this is my duty, my responsibility to my people. So that is what I've learned.
And just a hypothetical question, where do you see yourself in next 15, 20 years? I mean, what's your political aim, aspiration, or goal? Because everyone must have, should have an aspiration in the domain.
So I think for me, one of the reasons is because I saw my father pass away so young at 48. He had a lot of unfinished dreams, whether it was villages, whether for him, because he was a huge fan of Baba Saheb Ambedkar. He'd read a lot of the philosophers. He absolutely loved YSR, Devraj, Jarvis, from, J.H. Patel, Ramkrishna Hegde, across the board, different chief ministers, and he'd seen the change that they brought. For him, KR Nagar was to be his magnum opus, in the sense that this was a back of beyond rural constituency that he wanted to transform, whether it was the schools, whether it was the healthcare facility and infrastructure. He wanted to go above and beyond to make this a model rural constituency, right? And it was his passion. And it was, for me, maybe it's a short-sighted goal. For me, I really want the same opportunity my father had. Like, I have no big dreams of being at a national stage or whatnot. I will take any opportunity I get, whether through social work or electoral politics, to work in my constituency, to try and, bring that dream of his to life. Because quite, to be honest, like, my dad wasn't too keen of me being in politics, but he knew he couldn't stop it. Like, he really at one point was like, no, but he knew it was an inevitability. But for me, I think that I want to honor his unfinished work as the first step. And politics is anybody's game. I may plan for, like a Chandrayaan today, but I may not even take off at Sriharikota is the reality of politics. So, I'm positive, though. I've had some wonderful mentors in politics, and I hope I get the opportunity. And I think being a woman, it is an advantage also, because, there is a huge vacuum. There is a lot of opportunities for women. So I'm quite positive about it, to be honest.
It's been a relatively a small journey for you in politics. You started few years back, but you have seen, I mean, you were a part of a women wing in Karnataka, if I'm not wrong. Then you are national panelist in the National Congress. Also, you have been remained a contender for the KR Nagar seat every time. I mean, it comes up. I mean, what are the challenges that you have faced till now? Or, I mean, although it's a very short journey, it's not a very big journey now, but still, I mean, what are the challenges that you faced as a young politician?
So I think I want to say that I have been extremely lucky in a lot of ways, that in a very short span of time, I've had people recognize me and give me an opportunity. I started off with Professor Rajiv Gowda as a legislative research aide. When I was in Delhi, I was helping parliamentarians with their research for parliament. Then in Karnataka, I was the youngest spokesperson in the state. Then I was promoted to national, and there I got an opportunity to be a national secretary of the All India Mahila Congress at the youngest. Like, all of this, from national media panelist at 25 to Mahila Congress secretary at 27, 28, which was unheard of. In a very short span, I had a lot of leaders give me that opportunity. I came back to the state, and I'm very, very grateful for my party president, D.K. Kumar, for accommodating me here as well. I'm general secretary in the media department I work with Priyank Kharge, sir. So compared to a lot of other people, I'm not going to see everybody's there who can work hard. There can be 10 other Aiyshwaryas that work just as hard as me. But I think there's also been a certain amount of providence and fortitude in this, that I've been in the right place at the right time, maybe. The challenges, however, is, with somebody, I'm now 30. I have held national and state posts much beyond my age in a lot of ways. So the one fear and challenge is peaking too early. I think, it's for a lot of people. You don't want to be a Songa that comes in for one Grand Slam, does his whole round and, is out. You want to be a Djokovic. I'm sorry, I'm biased. It's Federer or Djokovic for me.
To play the long game, I mean.
Yes, exactly. So for me, the challenge has been, how can I contribute? How can I also stay relevant in terms of contributing politically? And for me, relevance doesn't come from throwing my face on hoardings, because wherever you go, I will never do that. I am principally opposed to having my picture on hoardings. I will not have a hoarding whatsoever. I do not do stage events per se. I go to people myself. So the question now is, we have a historic mandate. We have 135 MLAs in my state. I'm not one of them. I am part of the organization. I've worked for it. So the question now is, what, as is the case when there is a government, the party tends to take a back seat. I am a party functionary. The question for me, the challenge for me now, much along with a lot of my other colleagues, is how do we, contribute productively? How do we also pull our weight when it comes to what next? And for me, I'm a very simple mentality. Like, I'm not one of those, I will ask for a ticket. If it happens, it happens. If it does not, I will go back to work. I believe that my leadership knows best. I am not the one to ever speak against my leaders, because they've given me a lot. And I believe opportunities are abound, like there are a plenty. So for me, the challenge now is to see how more I can contribute, because I've been doing the media duty on air spokesperson for almost 5 years now. I think 2018. So literally one election cycle I've been doing it. So now to see what
I think the
next.
biggest challenge you have is how to remain behind your age always. I mean, you have been till now, but to continuously be for the next 30, 40 years. I think that's the
Yeah,
challenge.
but I think, the other thing is also, one of the disadvantages being as young as I am, because a lot of people be like, oh, you have age on your side, you have age on your side. But for me, I'm like, okay, I have age on my side, but what am I doing that's productive? How am I contributing? Where am I? That has been a struggle. And honestly, that's not a very bad struggle to have compared to a lot of other people, and I'm very grateful that my struggle is of seeing what more can I contribute, as opposed to like what is happening to my political future, because that I have no fear of. I believe that I'm a very strong believer in fate. I'm a very strong believer in that things happen at the time that they have to happen. So I have the patience there.
I mean, I see you as a dual role. I mean, you have a constituency to take care of, build for yourself or your party, and as well as, I mean, you are in the media. I mean, handling the media as well. So, I mean, obviously, it's the party that has decided the role for you. But a couple of questions: that what do you like the more? I mean, what do you like doing more? I mean, being with the people, being with the worker in the ground, or I mean, defending party, or I mean, attacking opposition in on the TV channels. What comes more naturally to you? That's one. And how do you manage this dual role? Because I mean, both are contrasting, if to see the least. I mean,
Ask any spokesperson. I don't think anybody likes the role of sitting on air and being shouted at, especially from my party, because you know how channels are these days. I also have been at the receiving end, though I'm very grateful. Some anchors, a lot of even people across on the other side of the political spectrum are not that aggressive with me, because I'm not the sort that will shout always, but there are times. I absolutely see, the thing is, for me, a lot of people say, oh, you speak with so much conviction. It's not speaking with conviction, it's because I have the conviction and the belief in my party. I am one of, for example, no matter what it is, I'm one of the biggest cheerleaders my party can ever have, because I've seen the sort of things my party has contributed. Even today, with the Congress guarantees and whatever said and done, the fact that, just this morning going past the bus station, I saw, no, yesterday, sorry, because it was a Sunday, I saw a group of ladies, because now we have free bus travel in Karnataka. I saw a group of ladies beautifully dressed with a basket. And, I stopped. I was so curious. And in the villages, you can just talk to whoever, however. And I said, where are you going? They said, oh, there's a temple in the neighboring district. We're going and coming, all of us to, and that, forget the positive externality, the fact that women have that agency, right? So I have very, very deep conviction about my party, my leadership, and what we've done. And I love defending it. And I've been capable enough, I would like to believe, of doing it. But my true passion, I can give it to, and everybody who knows me knows this, is my people, my constituency, my village, my farms. There is, it took me a lot of time to get used to this, because I was stepping into big shoes that I was coming in after my father passed away. I had to learn a lot. But the one thing you learn is the heart, the amount of heart and love that the people have to give you is something you will never find elsewhere, and they don't expect much. And for me, I am the happiest sitting amongst, like, I don't go to Bangalore very often. Like, I pretty much disappeared off the face of that urban center, and I'm currently doing this in the tiny town of KR Nagar, and my village is like 10 kilometers away. So this is my life. For me, my passion, my heart, my first priority is the ground. And it's easy to balance, to be honest, because most of my shows are in the evenings. And in the villages, the unsaid rule is everything starts early in the morning and things end around 6-ish, 7-ish. Because once it gets dark, you know how it is. So it works. It's a perfect balance, like a 9 to 5 day job. And then 5 onwards, I do shows.
So coming to your constituency, I mean, how do you, what do you do, or how do you remain connected to the, people, common people, workers? I mean, because workers also play an important part of, the political ecosystem. So, definitely you have a big shoe to fill. But how do you ensure that you remain connected to the people, you remain connected to worker? They are able to connect to you. Because again, you have not been a traditional. You have been. You studied in Bangalore. You are from law college. So a typical village people might not recognize like them. So how do you ensure that you establish a good connect with them, good rapport with them?
So the one thing I have realized is, over the years, like, the one benefit for me, to be very honest, is that I've grown up here from all my holidays. I've been the little fixture in my father's life whenever people have come to him. And the one thing I have imbibed in staying in touch with my people is, one, they have direct access to me. I have a public phone number which I am available on almost 24/7. Though past 9 o'clock, generally in the evenings, it goes to my secretary or somebody on my team to handle calls if there's any emergency. So my number is very public. So anybody that needs anything can call me. I will either put them in touch with what can be done, or if they need any help. So one is accessibility. See, a lot of politicians believe, I may or may not be wrong in my analysis of these politicians, but they believe that the more layers that they have in front of them for people to reach them, the bigger the leaders they are. They don't realize that common people don't understand these psychological barriers of importance you placed around yourself. They need help. You need to help them. So accessibility is the one thing. The second thing is the work that I do is I've decentralized my form of functioning. One, I do not entertain people in my house to the extent that I don't make them come sit, and I don't have like a grand kacheri for me to fix their issues. The minute they say that there's something they need, I set up a time and I go to the village myself. Because one, I also don't have as much access to a lot of the villages that my father did. So I'm learning through that, and I get to go to their village, see the facilities, talk to them, and I stay in touch. The third thing I do is something that my father used to do. It's called a juggly survey, which is, a juggly is basically the outdoor patio of houses, or even of or trees, or outside the temple stone, the katte there. I will go sit, bring everybody from the village that has issues, whether they want funds for a temple or whatever it is. I sit and talk to them there. I do it in a public fora because one, whether you like it or not, the caste strictures in villages mean that some people can enter certain houses, some people can't. I do not ever want to be in anybody's house where somebody else cannot enter. So I am always sitting at a temple or I'm sitting at that tree.
Public
And
places.
yeah, and public place to ask them what it is. And the fourth thing for me that I have done, see, the thing is, one benefit is 2004 was the last time anybody, like the Congress had never won since 2004. And funnily enough, 2004, my father won, but from the JDS, not the Congress. We came to the Congress with the current chief minister in 2006. So finally now here we have, I was not given the ticket this time, but the Congress candidate here has won. So it also makes it easier for me because if my people need help or work, I'm sure he's willing to help. But a large part of my connect came from COVID. I have 34 gram panchayats and all the PDOs, 209 ASHA workers, around 211 Anganwadi workers that are there, a lot more teachers, right? So during COVID, teachers basically weren't part of much. They pretty much went off. They had to look at Anganwadis. But ASHA and Anganwadi workers and the PDO workers, all of them became frontline workers. So for me, I went to every one of the panchayats, started giving them safety kits because I was able to get masks and sanitizers at that point from Bangalore. So that became my greatest outreach. Even now, from my 9 circles of Anganwadi ASHA workers, 209 of them, all of them have my phone number. All of them can call me if there is something. And the last part of outreach is in Kannada, we say savu, novu, madve, which basically is, you should always be part of people's happiness and sadness.
Yes.
So any deaths, I am there to pay my respects in whichever village. If I have people in each village who knew my father who will call me and tell me, I will go pay my respects and help them out if they come from, a situation that they don't have enough money for the last rites. Weddings, because we may not realize this, but for them, they place a certain amount of importance to us. Now, I'm nobody, but to them, I'm somebody's daughter. So I make it a point to attend weddings as routinely as possible. And I'm always there for them in like whether they're police or deaths and whatnot.
In general, what is the number of days that you live in constituency? I mean, out of 365 days a year, what's the average that you spend in a constituency? Just curious. I mean,
Like, okay, so I have been here currently for the past literally a week after elections, I came back here. So from end of May, I have been here except for like a day or two to Bangalore. I am pretty much here constantly. I prefer here, and because ever since COVID, I can do shows from wherever I am. It's decentralized, and unless I have work, if I have work, I go to Bangalore and come back. I
you
would
are full time, almost full time station at Canada, right?
pretty much. And my mother recently retired and she's moving back here. So we've pretty much decided to move away. Everybody goes from the village to the cities. We've decided to reverse that now, and we intend on living here permanently. For me, Bangalore is only necessity based, work based sort of work. So I'm here most of the time.
I mean, just another question out of just curiosity. I mean, such a young age, I mean, settling in a village or a small town, isn't it tough? I mean, find it very tough. I mean, there is a life, there is many things more that you get in city, and you feel out that this age comes once in a lifetime. I mean, all those stuff. So, I mean, you're too young to be settled in a village. Don't you feel so?
So, the one thing is that, like, I realized very early on that my career path also meant that I could not have a conventional life. In the sense that being in politics, whether you like it or not, there are a certain amount of restrictions. Whether it comes to socializing or whatnot, it's not that anybody in politics says it. It's just that the propriety dictates that, you refrain. Like, I've never had much of a social life anyway. So at a young age, and I realized I was spending my weekends in the village with Anganwadi kids or whatnot, and I was seeing people my age partying and doing brunches. But it was not initially, I think, because my friends were always doing these things, I started feeling like I was missing out. But slowly I realized that that gives me very little satisfaction. Maybe also because I have spent a substantial amount of time here. Like I have from the time I was a child, irrespective of what summer camp was in Bangalore, it was mandatory that I will come live in a village called Manchnali for all my holidays. And back then, there was one black and white television. There was no chocolates. There were no snacks. I had to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to help my great grandmother turn on the stove if we wanted to have hot water for a bath. And then she would go to milk the cows. And my entertainment was that. I may not have loved it then, but over time, I think you just got used to it. You didn't know better. And I think even living in the village, I think the only thing I may miss is probably Swiggy because I can't like randomly order in Taco Bell.
Anything, what do you like to eat? Well,
Well, to be honest, well, I think I'm addicted. Like I really like Taco Bell, but like at a basic level. But in the village, then you start like getting used to it, right? And I don't miss it. And a lot of people, and to be very honest, it's about how much of a home you make for yourself. Like if you see my setup in the village, I have all my books. I'm one of the few people that has begged for Wi-Fi, and I don't know which connection, bless them, that I have this internet connection now. I have a modern setup, even though it's in the village. So I've given myself those comforts because I want this to be home for me. It's not like I'm living in squalor, I'm living with nothing. Yes, the facilities are lower. Yes, we have power cuts. Yes, there are lizards the size of my face, which is really weird and very scary. There are cow noises. There are roosters at 3 or 4 in the morning, but it starts to grow on you. And it's about it. Where I stay is immaterial because my goal is so different. For me, this is just a part of like, giving me the rest I need for me to go out and work. So I look at it that way. And a lot of people can't adjust to it, I will be honest. But I think for me, because I've done it from a young age, I've been able to manage.
have been a part of a big political legacy. I mean, one benefit that you think that you get because of the political legacy, and one challenge that you face because of the political legacy.
I have to admit this, that whether I like it or not, that being somebody's daughter has given me a foot in the door, has given me a certain amount of protection in the sense that one, everybody knew my dad. He was a very affable, jovial politician, and everybody who's anybody today have all worked with him. So for me, when I say I'm that person's daughter, there's a natural attachment of saying, oh, this is somebody, our friend's daughter. So there's a certain amount of love and affection and protectiveness that comes by with that. But the disadvantage also, sorry, the animals of the neighborhood, the disadvantage I think for me has been that because a lot of these people have seen me from such a young age, sometimes it's hard for them to take me seriously. It's
Okay.
also because I am a kid to them. Like literally, I have had ministers, like I'll have a serious conversation with them. But they will be like, when you were 4 years old. And it's very sweet of them, it's a sort of camaraderie that they miss my dad, they talk about it. But a certain amount of it is that it kind of gets hard for them to take you seriously sometimes.
You are
But
still a child for them. I mean,
yeah, like a lot of them, and they're still like pat my head no matter what it is, even though I'm having a serious discussion with them. Though I will give credit to a lot of leaders that when I've had very valid points and I put my foot down, like I've never had to, but if I've ever been very firm on something that I know, they've always given me that year. I think it's also because they know that I come with the necessary background in the reading from just my intellectual, like rather my background as a lawyer, right? But the other disadvantage I think for all Dynast is I came into politics much after my father passed away. I did not have him when I took my first steps in politics. I did not have him guiding, charting, making sure I got tickets and whatnot. But everybody assumes that because I'm a Dynast, everything is easier for me. That And it's kind of demoting sometimes, but I'll tell you this, dynasts or children of dynasty have twice as much to prove, because one, they have to prove themselves, and the second, they have to prove themselves as being able to live up to the name. And you have to prove
Expectations
yourself.
are high, I mean.
Yes, and you have to prove yourself in an environment where everybody believes you are where you are because of your father or your mother. So no matter how, like, for example, when I first started going on air, when I started doing debates, a lot of detractors would be like, oh, they've sent her on debates because she's somebody's daughter. But then my capacity to speak on air has nothing to do with my forefathers or my ancestors. It is inherently me, but it is very hard to disprove. They think everything that we've gotten comes from that. And sometimes it's very demotivating because, they kind of, the general notion for a lot of people is to brush us aside, saying, oh, why do they need it? They have everything. They've gotten everything. Their father's generation has made everything that they have to make. Why do we need them? So it's a double-edged sword. It's a blessing, but sometimes it is very upsetting, that just because the same way I did not choose to be born into the same caste or community as somebody's child, the same way the other person didn't. It's a birth lottery, but the way that we get treated is a lot different from another. But again, like, double-edged sword or not, it is still beneficial. And I think the people who are first generation also have much bigger struggles, but it's not to say that we don't have struggles, right?
Um, in your message for the aspiring politicians who wants to take part as a spokesperson or want to see their career as a political spokesperson for them, and also one who wants to, I mean, become an MLA or wants to a ground politics, separate message for both set of people because you are in a dual role.
So for me, I think that there are 3 P's, persistence, patience, and perseverance, in whatever order you put it, is the one thing that you need in politics. This is not like a corporate ladder where you work for a certain amount of time, you get a certain promotion or whatnot. These are variables that you cannot check. There are risks in this, and this is literally not a game for the risk averse. For anybody that wants to be in politics, I'll divide them up later. Very simply, if you want to be in politics, do it with the sincerity of wanting to change what things are. Do not do it for the idea that you want to make money, you want to be in power, you want the big fancy cars, because those are very transient. For every man that sat in a fancy car and made thousands and thousands of whatever amount, you do realize that if that is why you're there, there is one day that the man above or even the authorities can bring you down to nothing. There are days when your power, you may be a chief minister and you may be defeated, in your own election because you don't understand what the people are. If you want to be in politics, be in politics with the sincerity that you want to serve, because politics is a responsibility. Politics is also something where you directly have the lives of people in your hand to change it for the better. And remember that that is a very sacred duty. It is a dharma that you have, and you've been given an opportunity. Millions of others may want it, but they will not get it. And if you do get the opportunity, remember, in a democracy, it is not for you. Your hand cannot be this, it is this, that you give. You try to give as much as you can and you try to work as much as you can. And that is the sincerity that you need. For people who want to be spokespersons, the thing is, a lot of people say, oh, you became a spokesperson because we're in the age of social media, man. The number of people that have made videos about issues that matter and have been picked up and have been recognized and have become spokespersons and ambassadors in their own right. Everybody has a chance. It's an equal playing field. It's how you use it, one. But the second thing is, trust me when I say this, that a lot of people sometimes also don't understand the mundane references I may draw from. But it comes from, if you want to be a spokesperson, you need to be well read. I can speak the Queen's English if I had to. I can put on an accent. I can be extremely fancy when I go on air. I can also be extremely colloquial like a Kannada speaker when I do Kannada shows. But it is not the presentation, it is the substance. There are some spokespersons that do not have theatrics, do not have flair, but there's substance. And remember, at the end of it, truly, it is not a shouting match. To be a spokesperson, you need to know your history, you need to read, you need to be well researched, because you never know the moment where somebody catches you on a lie. And let's be honest, you don't want to be a meme the next day,
Yes.
right? Like, that's one. Second thing is people for ground politics. It's not everybody's cup of tea, I'll be honest. Like, to wake up, my mother would tell
And
my
one, it's a 24/7 job. I mean, it's nothing less than that.
Oh, absolutely. Like, for example, my mother would say that you need to be absolutely mad to be in politics. She's saying you are spending money to contest elections, to win, to have people call and complain about you to you. That is the essence, is the way she would summarize it. But politics is not for everybody. The hardcore electoral ground politics is a long-term game. You may win an election today, you may lose one tomorrow, you may be popular today, you may not, because the variables of having lakhs of voters, that is what it is. But if you want to enter ground politics, please, my sincere advice, do not look at it as a top down, start from bottom up. If your foundation is strong, you can build as many balconies or turrets as you want in your castle. Your ground and your foundation need to be strongest. It doesn't necessarily mean you come in on a political party platform. Political capital also comes from having like social work as your background. I know cooperative sectors that create, or people who run cooperatives that create so much change that they end up becoming basically, kingmaker in so many elections. It is about having that political capital, about that human capital for you, or just creating enough change that enough people feel like you are a leader for you. And it is absolutely not a 5 or 10 year game. You need to hope to God that you have a long life, because politics is not like, gone are the days where, my boss, DK Shivkumar sir, would laugh and say, I said, sir, everybody says I'm so young. And then he says, Aishwarya, I was a minister at your age. And I'm like, what a way to give it to me that I'm nowhere. But those were the days of politics where the youth naturally were given chances if they were spectacular. And if they had won elections, and imagine winning an election so young. Now, I think the youngest MLA I know is my friend Darshan, but he contested, unfortunately, because his father passed away and he got the ticket. But, otherwise, like, very, very unfortunate, but otherwise you will not see people as young getting opportunities. Gone are those days. So you have to prep yourself, you have to hunker down, and if you're really serious about it, it will happen. But it is genuinely not a today, tomorrow, next week game. It is a very long term thing that you need to plan for. And to everybody out there, if you think you can make a living off of politics while being a sincere politician, it is a dream. Because then your motivations are completely different. Like, everybody feels
Intent is
that.
different altogether.
Absolutely. If for me, I can give it to you in writing, and well, so can the income tax department or whatnot, that in the 5 years I have worked, I have not had a salary. I am technically unemployed, and my only work is social work, and I'm a farmer. I farm, my politics is supported by the farmlands that I work on for most of the year, right? Which is now also in jeopardy because rains have been bad this time. So just for everybody who wants to be in politics, do not come in unless you are sincere about what you want to do for the people. If you want to do something for yourself, take that money, go invest. I'm sure there is some new financial like wonder, something that is happening. Maybe it's a Bitcoin, maybe it's an NFT. I don't know. I'm sure you'll make a lot more out of that. But politics is not, should not be for those that look at the quick buck, but rather to make change, to be honest.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Aishwarya, for your wonderful time, and all the best to you for your successful political career. Wishing you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great talking to you.
It was wonderful talking to you too.